Hey, so hard truth, you're being played. You are part of a propaganda tool that is being used to pull at your heartstrings to get you to cry on the internet over someone who died in the hands of ICE. And maybe there's a lot more to the story. Maybe there's not. But I don't find it coincidental that every few years we watch the same manufactured outrage cycle perpetuated by the mainstream media, our elected officials, and your favorite trusted influencers to get an emotional response elicited out of you and use you as a vehicle for more political power. Whether it was the BLM riots in 2020, the Women's March, abortion, Hamas, or now Abolish ICE that we're seeing all over our media consumption, something is very, very wrong here. And it's time for us to break the cycle. All this and more today on The Isabel Brown Show. Before you ask, because I know I got hundreds, if not thousands, of DMs and comments from you guys all throughout the weekend and our quasi-snow ice day yesterday. Yes, I have seen the news out of Minneapolis. No, I have not really said anything yet, at least up to this point for today's episode. Why? Because quite literally no human being is equipped to immediately respond to every single public event, tragedy, or crisis and then articulate our conscience about it in 0.2 seconds. We're going to end the episode on this today, so I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I saw a few posts over the weekend that perfectly describe exactly where my heart is right now in this moment, and honestly, especially if you are a Christian, where your heart should be too. So to start our entire conversation about ICE, protests, law enforcement, the concealed carry world, all of it that we're going to get into today, I want to start with the words that so beautifully illustrate where my soul is at, perfectly posted by our friend Anna Munley, who is a Catholic content creator and an amazing woman, truly just absolutely amazing. Her content is phenomenal. She posted this on her story yesterday. Yes, I've seen the news. No one was designed to absorb every event, tragic or joyous, and respond to all of it publicly and perfectly. I don't outsource my conscience to social media. I don't reduce complex situations to slogans, and I don't believe grief and or justice require a public post on demand. I pray. I reflect. And when I speak, it will be because I've discerned it, not because I was pressured. Silence isn't ignorance, and prayer isn't apathy. Nuance isn't betrayal, and restraint is not indifference. And to those asking, as a Christian, what should my response be? All I have to offer is this. Remember that our faith forms consciousness, not talking points. The first response is always prayer, especially when emotions are high. Discernment takes time, and a measured response is not a moral failure. It is fidelity to a formed conscience. The number of times I picked up my phone this weekend, like all of you, I'm sure have, and felt the need, the pressure, the urgency to put something out there, to put something on my Instagram story, to respond to something in a green screen video on TikTok, to retweet something or put some viral clickbait Twitter post out into the ethos. And something just told me repeatedly throughout this weekend, it's not time yet. It's not time yet. It's not time yet. Just breathe. You don't have to respond right this very second. Was a powerful gut check reminder and exactly what I want to talk about today as it pertains to ICE, Minneapolis, and all of the manufactured outrage or legitimate outrage that people are experiencing in our country in the last few days. This is a very Groundhog Day deja vu time for American politics. And we'll talk about why that is and why I think this is just a manifestation of the exact same manufactured outrage culture that we've seen on repeat since 2020. But our friends at the Conservateur said it best as it pertains to ICE, the anti-ICE protests, the calls to defund ICE, the new basically black square necessity to post immediately on social media. If you have fallen for, they say, believe all women, posting the black square, defund the police, wearing a mask outside, forcing people to get the COVID vaccine, that a man can become a woman, putting your pronouns in your bio, wearing a pink at, reciting land acknowledgements, free Palestine, that the Republicans are banning the books, the No Kings protest, Donald Trump is a sex offender, my choice, or my body, my choice. And now you're immediately posting smears about ICE. It's time to evaluate why you have fallen for every single psyop in the last 10 years. Think critically. Question anyone who tells you that you must post and believe what they say. Resist the manipulation and madness. Do your own research and don't toe the line. Resist the manipulation and the madness. That said, how should Christians, and even from a secular perspective, logical, functioning adult human beings be responding to what we're seeing right now in America with mass deportations, the ICE raids, and escalating anti-ICE protests? Let's get into it. This, to me, feels like truly a Groundhog Day manifestation of the exact same manufactured outrage cycle we have seen play out over and over and over and over again, arguably since 2016. So really the last decade in our country. And it's disheartening to me to see a lot of the same people fall for the exact same talking points, just with a different concerted effort or a different poster child of what the chaos ensuing is all about. And maybe I'm misinterpreting this, so feel free to correct me if you see this differently in our comment section today or by sending me an email or a direct message on social media. But to me, this outrage cycle started really in the modern sense at its outset, right around the time Donald Trump came onto the scene of American politics in 2015, 2016. And right around that time, you started to see the first modern, postmodern, I suppose, living now in America, coordinated left-wing, well-funded, well-organized, well-strategized protests taking place across our country. I went to several of them and made content about this right around the beginning of my content creator journey. I went to one of these events when I was in college, just out of sheer curiosity as a diehard conservative and Christian, but out of curiosity. And those events were the Women's March, when everyone was wearing the exact same crocheted, knitted vagina hat on their head, thinking that was going to make them the crusader of women's rights and everything that is good and true and beautiful in the world, which then kind of turned into like unapologetically, I'm a slut and I should be okay with that and you should be okay with that. And free liberation for women is all about being sexually promiscuous. And oh, by the way, that also ties into everything with abortion. And if you remotely suggest there's anything wrong with abortion, you are the evil one in society, not the people ending the lives of their children. It takes me back to like Miley Cyrus licking the confetti cake about shout your abortion. And when we really started to see a coordinated transition and pendulum swing on the left toward unapologetic insanity as the crusade for being a good human being, being the moral option for society. That died down pretty quickly after just a couple of years, and then it re-escalated. Funny how that happens, typically during major election cycles, with the Women's March coming into the scene in 2016. That all died down. Come back to 2020, and you saw this escalate into the Black Lives Matter riots and the Summer of Love protests following the death of George Floyd. The peaceful protests, mostly peaceful protests that created billions of dollars in damage for public property, saw small businesses destroyed, saw churches burnt down, saw mass violence take place in the streets of our cities all across America. And you were the bad guy if you said, hey, this behavior is really problematic and maybe we shouldn't be doing this. But you were the good guy if you were in favor of creating as much chaos and public destruction as possible. Period. Full stop. Then that kind of died down after a while, and everyone realized BLM was kind of a sham and was raising gazillions of dollars to buy mansions for themselves in Beverly Hills. And maybe George Floyd didn't even die of asphyxiation, actually, because the coroner's report says he didn't. So maybe I was manufactured into this outrage and I posted the black square before I was ready because everybody was demanding that I do it. So oops, sorry, you live and you learn. And then, lo and behold, around 2024, that re-escalated into the Free Palestine and Gaza encampments, where you saw not just mass unrest in our streets and all kinds of really insane public demonstrations, about supporting Hamas, like people literally unapologetically supporting a actual terrorist organization designated as such by the United States of America and international law organizations like the UN historically, but also manifested in targeted physical violence against particular groups of people, like Jews, because that's what we're supposed to do. I'm the good guy. I'm the moral person. I'm rooted in goodness. If I take to the streets to create as much chaos and violence as possible, and if you logically, rationally are looking at this and saying, hey, something is wrong here, alarm bells are going off in my head, you are the bad guy, which, lo and behold, died down a little bit after the 2024 election and now has escalated back right around midterms. Funny how this happens, into these protests we're seeing in Minneapolis and the calls to defund ICE. And I think it's really interesting as we're watching this cycle rinse and repeat over and over again. And I'm sure I missed several of the manufactured outrage cycles in there. We could attribute a lot of this to COVID or the child trans movement or abortion or any of all of it. But I keep watching the same actors, the same people, the same media outlets, the same politicians push basically a slightly different version of the same foundational script to create chaos, to manufacture violence, and to use that as a vehicle to take over more power over your particular life. Rinse, repeat, over and over again. And as people are responding to this, I don't find it coincidental that the influencers on social media, the normies that are reacting to this, even the politicians that are making public statements about this keep saying, oh, this is so tiring. It's so exhausting. I am exhausted having to constantly stand up for human rights and be the good guy in America. It's dawning on me that being exhausted is quite literally the point. These people that are pulling the strings and running the puppet show of everything you're watching as grassroots, real people response to a crisis that's actually quite well funded and well organized, protesting, manufacturing outrage through propaganda. These people are literally trying to break you psychologically through the same repeat stress cycles based on whatever the manufactured outrage cycle is based in. BLM, the Women's March and abortion, the trans child movement, COVID, the vaccines, any of it. And they are programming you harder and turning up the temperature and turning up the dial every single time. They do this through the same repeat behavior over and over again, namely by capturing the media narrative and then making the media narrative fit into whatever the talking points are for that particular issue of the day, demanding that you participate in the media narrative as a result. Today, that issue happens to be the death of two anti-ICE protesters, Renee Good and Alex Preddy, consequently calling thousands of people all across the internet and world to loudly champion calls to defund ICE, to disband federal law enforcement, basically, and to inflict violence upon federal law enforcement in an effort, ironically, to restore human dignity. That's the line that keeps being used repeatedly. And I've seen endless posts throughout the last few days and weeks about how the government is just like pulling people out of their house to execute them in the streets. They're killing people indiscriminately. It's insane. But let me be clear. There is never, I feel like Obama saying that, let me be clear. There is never an actual objective with these movements and the people funding and organizing them. They don't want to accomplish a specific goal like enshrine abortion or defund the police or defund ICE or put reparations into the hands of Black people. They say that, and that's arguably what they create in the moment, are calls to do all of these things. But really what they want to do, and they test it out every few years, right around election cycles, coincidentally, is to create chaos for their overarching umbrella goal of taking more control over your life. They don't care what they have to contradict themselves over to do it, and they rewrite history every single time through these cycles, which we'll show some examples of today. They don't care who gets caught in the crossfire. They don't care about the strays that get fired along the way, creating societal harm. You, in participating in these manufactured outrage cycles, are a useful idiot. You're a useful idiot to those who are funding, organizing, and strategizing these repeat cycles. Promise me, after we have this conversation today, don't let yourself merely become a propagandized pawn. And we may disagree at the outset of this conversation. You may walk away saying, Isabel, I could not have a more different opinion than you, and that's okay. As long as you arrive at the conclusion that you do, not as a result of being a propagandized pawn or a useful idiot, but through moral consistency, logical consistency, and actual self-reflection in your conscience through the Holy Spirit, I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with is the repeat manufactured outrage cycle that continues to tear apart, rip apart the very fabric of our society with increasing escalation every 5 minutes. So there's a lot of people talking about this today. But what I want us to focus on is the how. How are these people manufacturing outrage? Why are we continuing to repeat this cycle over and over and over again? And how should you, as a Christian or from a secular perspective, a logical, functioning adult human being, be responding to this from a place of logical and moral consistency? The biggest way that these people are pulling the puppet strings and making sure that you have your emotions and tensions running as high as humanly possible has been consistent this entire time, from the Women's March a decade ago all the way through the Alex Preddy killing that we saw over the weekend that everybody is freaking out about. And that's the legacy media. In the last few weeks, it's been worse than I've ever seen it. And that's saying something, because these people truly are evil. Like, they actually are just manufactured propaganda outrage machines. At this point in time, I say it probably 40 times a week, you don't hate the mainstream media enough. And I mean it, because let's just back up to before Alex Preddy a couple of days ago. The level of lying that the media is willing to do to accomplish their end goals is disgusting. Before Alex Preddy became the latest face of the movement, the mainstream media, after the buzz about Renee Good started to die down, because lo and behold, you can't hit police officers with your car. Shocking information, I know. They tried to reignite people's emotional tensions and flames over all of this with an incredibly viral picture of a young 5-year-old boy, this beautiful little boy who's wearing a little bunny ears hat and is standing outside in the cold, crying, looking sad, with a Spider-Man backpack on and being held on the backpack by an ICE agent. This picture was everywhere. It was all over my social media, and every single legacy media outlet, with very few exceptions, ran the story that ICE agents, this is from the Washington Post on their Twitter account, in Minnesota, detained children. They wrote this: ICE detains 4 children from Minnesota school district, including 5-year-old boy. The sheer number of posts I saw about this on the internet, the sheer hours devoted on CNN and MSNBC, and the sheer number of headlines written about this photo from the Washington Posts of the world was nauseating, because lo and behold, ICE wasn't locking up, putting in handcuffs, detaining, arresting, and deporting a 5-year-old little boy. What actually happened was quite the opposite. Hillary Clinton took it upon herself to push this story everywhere. The headline she shared said this: ICE detains 5-year-old Minnesota boy. School leader says agents used him as bait, with the sad crying boy photo. She said enforcing the law is one thing. Terrorizing a population using children as pawns is another. My heart aches for Liam Ramos and his family. Well, truth comes out eventually, although after the entire internet has weighed in on this and performed our performative outrage to make sure everyone knows that we are good people. We're not the bad people. We're the good people. The truth comes out from Immigration and Customs Enforcement that this was a lie. They quote tweeted Hillary Clinton's tweet and said this is an abject lie. The child was abandoned by his father, a criminal illegal alien from Ecuador, who, when we started pursuing him for breaking the law to deport him, fled from our officers. Our officers ensured the child was safe. Does your heart also ache for the thousands of families who have lost loved ones to violent criminal illegal alien murderers? You haven't tweeted about those angel families once. Actually, though, what was ICE supposed to do in that situation to appease the mob? Were they supposed to just leave a 5-year-old boy abandoned outside in the winter cold in Minnesota? Were they supposed to let him freeze to death? Were they supposed to let him starve to death? Who knows how long the father would have been gone when his immediate instinct was to abandon his own child in escaping the responsibility and the consequences of his own actions. What was law enforcement supposed to do in that situation? But it didn't stop the hundreds of videos that I saw in the manufactured Outrage 24-hour news cycle of everyone crying over the 5-year-old little boy and saying how evil the federal government is, how much our federal government hates children, how much we're using children as pawns. In reality, you are the pawn. You are the political pawn being used as a useful idiot to perpetuate the exact same talking points so that the radical, extreme authoritarians in our society can gain more control over your life. And now the legacy media is doing exactly the same thing with Alex Preddy. Of course, they're discussing his status as a concealed carry permit holder, an emergency room, or is it ICU? Emergency room or ICU nurse, an upstanding citizen who was taking to the streets to defend the defenseless when no one is willing to speak for them. And again, I want to be abundantly clear as we get into this because I don't want you to misconstrue what I'm saying. The video footage of what happened to Alex Preddy is incredibly, incredibly difficult to watch. I probably made it through 2 or 3 times before having to turn the video off because it made me so viscerally uncomfortable. And it is a tragedy. It is a heartbreaking tragedy that there is a man who is dead today who could still be alive, could still be with us if this horrifying situation hadn't have happened in the first place. My heart breaks over any loss of human life because all of us, whether you are Alex Preddy or the ICE officer in this situation, are created in the image of God and have inherent dignity simply because we are incarnate human beings. Watching these videos, however, the media wants you to leap to a conclusion, to act like it is a clear, clean, cut and dry reality that an innocent man was drug out from a peaceful protest at random and executed in cold blood by violent police officers who are just intent on killing as many American citizens as possible. Some people are watching these videos and arriving at that conclusion. Other people are watching the exact same videos and arriving at the conclusion that Alex Preddy was a man illegally carrying his firearm. He allegedly was found, his body was found without his ID or his concealed carry permit, both of which are required when you are concealing a weapon. I would know. I am a concealed carry permit holder. I conceal a lot. I had to go through all the classes, had to deal with all of it in the state of Colorado before I moved to Florida, where it was a constitutional carry state. Now I'm having to do all the classes again in Virginia. It is like the number one rule, as any firearm owner would tell you, that when you are concealing a weapon, you have to have your permit on you and you have to have your driver's license on you. So different conversation for a different time. But other people are watching this, that this man was illegally carrying his firearm, took it upon himself to go, at best, beat up police officers, or at worst, incite maximum damage using a gun upon police officers. It is entirely unclear from the video footage that is out there, and I know this is controversial to say, whether he reached for his gun prior to being killed or whether he may have been disarmed first, among 100 other important questions that we need answers to before we arrive at any logical conclusion with what happened a few days ago in Minneapolis. But one thing is abundantly clear to me. We should never, ever jump right to a black and white, right and wrong, good or evil conclusion based on the extremely limited evidence we saw from these blurry videos that look like they were taken in 2008 on someone's flip phone camera. The media is demanding that you do, though, which is a very dangerous and scary position to be in. There is an ongoing investigation this week, I've been told, happening at the Department of Homeland Security, and that was confirmed by Kristi Noem in her press conference over the weekend to get to the bottom of what really happened, and I'm sure over the next few days, our questions will be answered accordingly very soon. But to act like this is a one-and-done deal, this is a foregone conclusion, is preposterous. I don't know about you, it feels very George Floyd to me, George Floyd-esque, where the media and the world sprinted, Usain Bolt style, to the end result here to react to an unclear video. By the way, the autopsy confirms that George Floyd did not die from asphyxiation, but by the time the court of public opinion made up its mind, it really didn't matter. There is a man, a police officer, who did not kill someone based purely on the evidentiary support, sitting on death row today as a result of all of this. What's scary this time, though, and honestly feels like an escalation beyond what we saw the media do in the wake of George Floyd's death, is that they are broadcasting this message not just to Minnesota, not just to America, but to the entire world with the intent on emotionally driving a physical response in you, assuming that you will take it upon yourself to do anything you possibly can to be willing to lay your life down to be the good guy in this situation. Our favorite accredited journalist on the planet. Actually, no, that's not giving enough credit to Don Lemon because he really is our favorite. Maybe our second favorite accredited journalist on the planet is none other than CNN's Jake Tapper, famous for just incredible, thorough journalism day in and day out. In 2026, the year of our Lord, he decided to have one of these left-wing protesters on his show over the weekend. And here's what this person had to say about just how bad things are getting in Minnesota. Again, this isn't like a random podcast. This isn't some radical streamer. This isn't the Young Turks. This is CNN, trusted by millions of people all over this country as accredited journalism, airing footage of a liberal claiming that ICE is installing ovens in Minneapolis to execute American citizens at random, a la Nazi Germany Auschwitz concentration camp. Their words, not mine.
I understand that, but they take people to Fort Snelling here, which literally was built as a concentration camp, and Alligator Alcatraz, which I think we can all agree is a concentration camp. I'm not saying they're Dachau. I'm not saying they're putting people in ovens yet, but these are concentration camps.
Okay.
I don't need to argue with you about
yeah.
I'm not saying they're putting people in ovens yet, but these detention facilities were built intentionally as concentration camps, to which Jake Tapper doesn't correct him, doesn't disagree, doesn't fight back, doesn't say, well, that's a little inflammatory. He shakes his hands and huffs and puffs a little bit and then says, yeah, okay, and moves on. CNN. The media is taking this even a step further to participate in the actual rewriting of history to create a further emotional response. And we didn't see this in the era of George Floyd, although we did see a lot of emotional outrage. This is new. This is part of the AI era. And what's really scary is we all talk about on social media how difficult it is to tell the difference between fact and fiction because you cannot differentiate between an AI image or a legitimate image, now video as well. But the Telegraph, accredited journalism, accredited newspaper, one of the UK's leading publications, decided that they wanted to publish a completely edited photo, what looks like an AI-generated photo, of Alex Preddy to entirely dramatically change his public appearance in trying to manipulate your emotions about the situation. Look at this side by side. This is the original staff photo of Alex Preddy, ICU nurse, dead by this shooting this last weekend. Normal looking human being. No, I see no problem with airing an actual photo of this person next to the AI generated, edited, completely fabricated, propagandized version of what Alex Preddy actually looked like. What is wrong with this? Like, genuinely, I don't understand why someone would do this, why a publication would do this. And I saw a friend post about this on her Instagram story. This is a powerful question. As a woman, I want to leave this comparison up on the screen for you because it's so bad. Look at this and ask yourself this. As a woman, ask yourself why the media would feel the need to edit his face to make him more attractive. Because that's exactly what they did. They made his nose smaller. They made his face shorter and much more symmetrical. They opened his eyes a little bit. They edited the lighting to make him look more tan instead of pale and sickly. They even cleaned up his beard margins. Okay, like literally, this is like the early 2000s fashion magazines where no one is actually a real human being. Why does the media feel the need to edit his face to make him more attractive to you, objectively speaking? Is it to garner your sympathy? Is it to subtly further convince you of the lie that they're peddling? If they will lie about his appearance, what else will they lie to you about? Powerful question. Powerful question. And they put this photo with the Telegraph under this headline. Alex Preddy, published this morning, was an American hero. Now he's dead and branded as a terrorist. Immediately placed above the fake image of not a real human being. A completely fabricated, probably AI-generated human being to make him more attractive to you so that, what? You'll have more sympathy for him? You'll look at him as like hot doctor instead of complicated, troubled individual that went to a protest and got in an altercation with police officers? People have started memeing this, and I want to be clear, I don't think memeing someone's death is funny, but the evolution of AI generating someone's face, yeah, that's pretty preposterous and deserves memes about it. Duck Vader tweeted this: real life versus CNN. It's barely an exaggeration, though, you guys. And someone else just tweeted a picture of McDreamy, Dr. McDreamy. Outrage grows over Alex Preddy's shooting in Minneapolis. But honestly, like, they McDreamified Alex Preddy. For what intention? To emotionally manipulate you. That's the only explanation I can possibly come to. Because why are we now rewriting history to make average-looking people hot after they're dead in the effort to further political ends somehow in America? What is the objective here? It is a rewriting of history to generate a further emotional response in you, the useful idiot. If the media will so blatantly lie to you, I'm going to ask this again, so blatantly lie to you about someone's appearance, what else do you think they are willing to lie to you about? It's worth spending some time looking in the mirror and reflecting on that. But I'll tell you who isn't reflecting on that is elected officials. And between the legacy media and elected officials, this is the next step in the evolution of the manufactured outrage cycle of how these people get you to behave in an emotionally disconnected, crazed way from reality in order to accomplish their political goals. After the mainstream media gets your emotions completely riled up, elected officials then step in, as they did with the Women's March and the calls to constitutionally enshrine a right to abortion, as they did with the Summer of Love, George Floyd, BLM riots demanding reparations to Black people in this country, as they did with the Gaza Hamas protests, basically saying that, like, Jews shouldn't be on their college campuses, which is insane. That members of Congress and mayors and state legislators participated in this behavior, these elected officials step in to nudge you into action even further after your emotions have been kindled with the fire of passion we saw in the legacy media. Just like the Summer of Love BLM riots following the death of George Floyd that caused billions of dollars in damage and mass destruction of public property across the country. You are now watching elected officials participate in the outrage cycle by comparing ICE to the Gestapo or the Nazi secret police and encourage citizens to create even further chaos and unrest, participating in this insanity themselves. The more we see Tim Walz and Mayor Jacob Frey of Minneapolis repeat these exact same talking points over and over and over again, the really, really sad reality is that the temperature is rising across the country about civil unrest, and our police officers, particularly ICE and CBP officers, probably are going to start feeling preemptively defensive. I don't want that to happen in our country, but it's easy to understand that more of these incidents are probably going to continue happening if you are telling civilians, hey, go put your life on the line, go obstruct law enforcement, obstruct justice, throw punches at law enforcement, scream in their face, create blockades, block the roads, do whatever you have to do to be the martyr for what is good and morally acceptable in society, because they are the bad guy and you are the good guy. I don't want these further incidences to keep happening, but it seems to me that Tim Walz does, that Jacob Frey does, and that other elected officials that are now feeding into manufacturing the outrage do as well. They are rising the temperature and normalizing political violence with every single passing day, the exact same way they did immediately in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination. Louder, actually. But essentially saying political violence is a justified means to an end if it means we can accomplish our particular political goals of silencing the other side, of shutting down anything that those supporting the Trump administration voted for, which includes mass deportations and removing people who came into this country as members of violent gangs and cartels from America's neighborhoods and city streets. It's also just insane to me that these people are participating in probably illegal behavior themselves. They're not just saying this stuff and trying to get you to do it now as the useful idiots. Our elected officials are now the useful idiots as well. The literal lieutenant governor of Minnesota, second in command behind Tim Walz, proudly posted this, like, out into the world herself. What looks like a TikTok video, it may have just been posted to Instagram. Peggy Flanagan took it upon herself to use her platform as the lieutenant governor of Minnesota to instruct leftists to, and I quote, put your bodies on the line to protest Trump and ICE. Listen to this.
If you are sick and tired of your government being ransacked by Donald Trump and his minions, literally taking away healthcare from your neighbors, stealing food off of the table from seniors and children, and generally
none of which is happening, by the way.
The fact that our neighbors are being disappeared, P.S. without due process, it is just called kidnapping, then show up and use your voice, put your body on the line, and use non-violent direct action, which is one of the most important tools in our toolbox to say, I am not okay. I will not go silently into the night. I will join arms with my friends, with my neighbors, and with people who generally believe that folks should be able to afford their lives, should be treated with dignity and as human beings. Then we need to see you there.
Wow. Okay. Cool. Tell me that doesn't inflame tensions and cause more of this crap to continue happening, to cause more loss of life to continue happening. They are participating in this themselves. We've also heard a lot the last couple of days from our friend Cam Higbee, who's doing amazing work infiltrating some of these group chats that are organizing these protests on platforms like Signal, that actual elected officials, members of the government, are participating in these Signal chats and helping to organize these protests and the unrest that's turning into violence that we're seeing in places like Minneapolis. Go follow him on X if you haven't already, by the way. He's doing amazing work. And we'll try to maybe have him on the show later this week to talk about this, because this is shocking information, including to those of us who've been paying attention for a very long time. But now it's not just isolated to Minnesota. Again, this narrative can't just stay isolated to Minnesota. The exact same way none of this could stay isolated to just one particular city in the wake of George Floyd, because they had to turn this into a national scandal right around an election. Interesting. To make every city the summer of love in summer 2020. Congressman Sri Thanadar, who is from Michigan, interesting man, took it upon himself this last week to tweet a few days ago a picture of a baby sleeping in a crib. Again, this is a United States congressman, a member of the federal government, who tweeted this picture of a beautiful baby sleeping in a crib, saying this: a baby was hospitalized after being tear gassed by ICE. Something tells me, like the 5-year-old boy, probably not accurate. The family was not illegal and not even protesting, just driving home from their son's basketball game. This cannot be reformed. Time to abolish ICE. Sitting member of the United States House of Representatives. Well, the internet sleuths decided to do some digging and found some photos of people protesting in Minneapolis in a literal riot. Not just a protest, a riot where punches were being thrown, weapons were everywhere, violence was normalized. Somebody tweeted this: lies. We are being lied to. Remember the Staub story about the family with the baby getting tear gassed at the North Minneapolis riot last Wednesday? They said they were just passing through the area on the way home from their son's basketball game. Nope. Here they are on video at the riot nearly 45 minutes before the flashbang struck their car. These still images are from someone named Jonathan Mason's video that night at around 8:30, 8:45 p.m. The tear gas call with the baby 911 call was dispatched at 9:22 p.m. They left their children in the car at a riot and nearly killed their baby as a result when they were fleeing law enforcement. Abandoned their child, their baby, as they were fleeing law enforcement to escape the responsibility and consequences of their own actions in participating in organized violence against the police. Again, what do you want ICE to do? Leave a baby to be suffocated by tear gas in a car that has been abandoned by their loser mother and father? Or do you want them to take the baby to the hospital to seek emergency medical treatment? Logical question, worth asking, but one you're not even allowed to ask in the manufactured outrage cycle, or you are the bad guy. So we watch this progression, mainstream media to elected officials to maybe the most dangerous way these people elicit an emotional response in you of all, the normie influencers. As you guys are evaluating your goals for the new year and hopefully getting quality rest every night is among them, finding the right mattress for you and your family doesn't have to be complicated. Our friends at Helix actually make it incredibly straightforward with their sleep quiz that matches you to the perfect mattress based on your specific preferences and sleep needs. They are not just another mattress company either. Helix is the most awarded mattress brand that is out there with glowing reviews from major publications like Forbes and Wired. It is not just marketing hype, I can absolutely promise you. They conducted a study recently finding that 82% of participants actually saw an increase in their deep sleep cycle while sleeping on a Helix mattress, which is pretty impressive when you think about how crucial quality sleep is for everything else in life. In our family's story in particular, we are struggling for a full night of sleep as our daughter seems to be allergic to sleep at the 9-month mark. Moms, help a mom out. Drop your suggestions in the comments. But the hours that I do get of sleep are so much better since we made the switch to a Helix mattress, and I can hear my husband snoring away every single night, getting the best night of sleep he possibly can. I can absolutely promise you this has been such an amazing change for our family, and it will be for you as well. The best part is Helix even offers free shipping straight to your door, a 120-night sleep trial, so that you can actually test it out in your own home and make sure it works for you, and returns and exchanges are totally seamless if it's not quite the right fit. Plus, they back everything up with a limited lifetime warranty. You can start sleeping right tonight by ordering a Helix mattress today. Go to helixsleep.com/Isabel for 20% off site-wide. Again, that's helixsleep.com/Isabel for 20% off every single thing on their website. And make sure you enter our show name after checkout so that they know that we sent you from the Isabel Brown Show. Last time, helixsleep.com/Isabel. So again, once the mainstream media makes you appropriately freak out about this, and then elected officials create chaos surrounding all of it and prescribe different policy solutions related to whatever the manufactured outrage cycle is, then they activate the normie influencers, the non-political people, the people who never talk about these issues at all. And this is arguably the most dangerous part of the equation and the cycle, because these are not accredited journalism institutions that honestly people don't really trust anymore. We haven't for the last decade or so, since the era of fake news has been exposed. They're not automatically polarizing figures like politicians are, where you start to tune them out immediately thinking, okay, you have your own interest here vested in this issue because it's going to determine your ability to get reelected or whatever. These are just normal people. They're nurses, they're fashion influencers, they're mom influencers. And influencers, as we know from the marketing world, are far more effective than traditional advertising because you actually trust what these people have to say. You feel like you've been invited into their personal lives, their circle of friends, their inner circle of trust, and whatever they have to say, you assume is basically like your friend or family member saying this to you over a cup of coffee across the table. On this issue, I have seen more tears flown. And I don't say that lightly. I don't say that as like a hyperbolic, exaggeratory statement. I'm saying this because people are literally bawling their eyes out on the internet than anything since the Black Square. Anything since we must speak up as white people and apologize for our whiteness. Magnolia Farms, Chip and Joanna have the circle of white is evil conversations with a black man vibes. I have seen more tears spilled on the internet over defund ICE and the necessity to restore human dignity than any other issue in the past several years. And this is intense. People are misunderstanding the severity of this situation because this is fundamentally swinging the political pendulum for women across the political spectrum. Whether you like it or not, women are viscerally uncomfortable with what they are seeing because this is the only part of the narrative that they are hearing, with exception to maybe one person, Allie Beth Stuckey, who has done a phenomenal job over the past couple of days covering what's really happening in Minneapolis. The first post I ever saw from the normie influencers about all of this is from a labor and delivery nurse who I actually really enjoy her posts most of the time. She loves talking about the celebration of new babies being born and women's health. We disagree on a whole host of issues. Don't get me wrong, but she never really wades into politics. Very, very, very rarely does she ever talk about any of these things, and has a massive TikTok following. Her name is Jen Hamilton. This post was the one that I initially saw of her actually crying on the internet over the supposed detention and potential deportation of the 5-year-old little boy. Listen.
You guys are monsters. And I'm so tired. I'm so tired of people in my personal life telling me, don't take all the problems of the world. Just quit talking about it and you'll feel better.
Tired.
You can't change anything. So what? Don't worry yourself about it. How can you not? How can you not? This 5-year-old little boy was coming home from school and they used him as bait to get his dad to come to the door while they hid. And they took the father and the 5-year-old boy to an ICE detention facility. They are here legally. The cruelty is the point. At what point do you, as someone who voted for this, say, I do not support what is happening right now? That is all that I want to hear from people who voted for this. I shouted from the rooftops 100 miles away that this was going to start happening. They're not going to do that. He's not going to do that. I just want my eggs to be cheaper. No new wars. And now we're about to take over not one but 2 countries. Your loyalty is overridden your integrity.
Oof. We're going to stop it there because this goes on for several more minutes. But your loyalty overrides your integrity if you voted for Donald Trump and you are not immediately taking to social media in tears to scream about a human rights crisis related to ICE. All I want to hear, first of all, why do you need to hear labor and delivery nurse TikTok influencer? Why do you need to hear an apology from people who voted for Donald Trump? Why? Why do you need to see every other woman in your life start to cry on the internet to prove they are a good person, to participate in performative moral outrage? Because it's the only way, especially as women today, to prove that you're the good guy. Manufactured outrage cycle. Your loyalty to Donald Trump is overriding your integrity. But you never saw any of these tears flow from this person or any of the other influencers we're about to watch when Laken Riley was brutally assaulted and murdered going for a run near her college campus. You never see these tears flow when babies, literal infant babies, are raped to death at the southern border. Not an exaggeration. That happens all the time. You never see this performative outrage and the tears start flowing for any other example of an illegal immigrant coming into our country to inflict violence and maximum damage upon women and children in this country. Ever. So where is loyalty actually impeding upon people's integrity? It's worth asking that question. She posted this video. It gets taken down from TikTok. And even after everyone in her comment section is trying to politely correct her that no, this 5-year-old boy was not detained by ICE. No, he was not actually here legally. His father was not here legally. His father was here illegally, which is why ICE was going after him in the first place. No, none of these things are actually true. Like, you are really upset and you're asking for an apology from people, but we're not going to apologize because I understand where your sympathy is coming from, but it's misdirected. She decided to dig in and double down on social media and not talk about babies being born or any of the like. Instead, she decides to post 2 days ago on TikTok just a still image. Alex Preddy, RN, was murdered. ICE, period, out, period, now, period. A labor and delivery nurse, the normie influencers, and someone who, again, I generally really like her content. I think she does really important things to help women feel empowered going into childbirth. She regularly calls out the hyper-medicalization of the birth experience in a really profound way that helps a lot of people. We disagree on a whole host of things, but you never see her crying about other human rights injustices. You only see her crying on the internet and demanding that other people cry too, that other people apologize for their vote, that they abandoned their most deeply held convictions and beliefs and values over whatever the hell the media is telling you to say. And I don't know this person. I don't know how they make their income. I don't know if they do make income from social media, but it's following a lot of the same scripted talking points we're seeing pretty much every other influencer say, which begs the question, are these people getting paid for these posts? I think it's important to ask. I think it's really important to ask, because otherwise, if not out of toxic empathy and the manipulation of your feelings and emotions to think that you're being the good guy, which is totally possible. Don't get me wrong. I think the vast majority of people posting about this do have good intentions. They've just had their empathy twisted and manipulated by people in power to be misdirected at the wrong thing. Many of them are getting paid. That's just true. That's the reality of the influencer world. And the media loves to call it out. They did just the other day when right-wing influencers are being paid for these things. By the way, I wish I would have known I could make thousands of dollars every single time I talk about a lot of these issues. I'm certainly not constantly being approached by all of these things. The Wall Street Journal just ran a huge piece on this the other day, that the right-wing influencer community is being paid. Wait till you find out about the money on the left, because it is highly, highly more alluring and powerful than right-wing money on the internet. Just trust me for that one. It's not just labor and delivery nurses. The favorite voice of women everywhere, Alex Cooper of Call Her Daddy, interviewed Michelle Obama last week and nearly broke down in tears about how divided the country is. We feel so divided, and it was never like that under the Obama years of leadership. Listen to this.
Country does feel very divided today. That's a fact, right? The hate and disgust and vitriol, the divide is so big it almost feels unfixable. Yeah. Can you, though, somehow explain, in your opinion, how you think we begin to repair not only what we have lost, but create a new future that is actually inclusive, equal, and respectful of each other? Because right now, it does not feel like we are close to that.
And don't you get a sense that people are not content in that? More people are starting to be outspoken about it, and a lot of people are like, I didn't sign up for this. That is us speaking. I don't think we're happy in this state. And I think that's a good sign. I don't think that this young generation wants to go back, have less freedoms, less possibilities of who they can be in the world, who they can marry, who they can love, who's in and who's out. I just think we've come too far to go that far back. I have faith, and I'm choosing to have faith. For all our listeners, it's like, now we've got to do the work to look inside and figure out the parts of this that are working and what isn't. We have to really start having conversations about that. That's hard to do at a time when our algorithms are feeding us what we want to hear. But now we know that. Now we're aware. It's like, okay, you can't just get your information from your phone or your TikTok because it's feeding you yourself. And so if you want to learn something else, you may have to talk to people. We may have to start coming out of our phones and back into communities.
We might have to talk to people who we disagree with, because young people don't want to live in a society where they're told who's in and who's out. Michelle Obama, was it not you 5 minutes ago that just told black women that they need to stop buying pieces of clothing that happened to be designed and distributed by white women? Was that not you, by the way, while you were wearing a $1,000 skirt designed by a white woman? But I digress. Was it not the left that has gone out of their way to dehumanize people to the nth degree as much as humanly possible? That you were an evil person if you wanted to go to church during COVID or refused an experimental vaccine? That if you wanted to support strong border policies in our country over the past decade, you were xenophobic and a white supremacist? Do you know the number of times that this family has tweeted about white supremacy, despite having been the president and first lady of the United States? And Alex Cooper, gee, I wonder why the country feels so divided. I wonder why vitriol and hate are at the forefront of everyone's mind. I wish it wasn't that way, but you literally host a sex podcast that encourages all women to hate all men. You have had several episodes tell women it is empowering to cheat on their boyfriends, fiancés, or husbands. That's sexually liberating for women. Last election cycle, you sat down with Kamala Harris for what can only be described as a propaganda interview for the fact that millions of women are going to literally die in a Trump America because we wouldn't have abortion through all 9 months of pregnancy, literally contributing to the violent destruction of millions of babies every single year, propagandizing the abortion industry. So I wish hatred and violence and vitriol wasn't a part of our society, but we love to talk about how everyone else needs to look in the mirror, and we never take the time to do that ourselves. And again, it's not just labor and delivery nurses. It's not just sex podcasters. The fashion influencers and the lifestyle influencers are all repeating the same manufactured talking points about abolishing ICE and defunding ICE all over the internet. This young woman named Kensington has millions of followers on social media and is represented by the United Talent Agency, one of the biggest talent agencies in the world, who had this to say on TikTok this week. 17.6 thousand likes.
My goal with my TikTok and my page and my content is and always has been just wanting to be a safe place. Whether it's for me, whether it's for you guys, when everything seems really scary and fucked up, you can come here and we can turn off our brains and hang out. With that being said, sometimes, a lot of the times recently actually, it's feeling a bit dystopian to come on here and film my little videos when what's going on in the world is so beyond up. This isn't even me being political. This is me standing up for like basic human rights. There's people being murdered. There's people being ripped away from their lives, from their families. Babies being ripped away from their families and their lives. It's just kind of like word vomit, to be honest, but just kind of wanted to spill my brain to you guys and also kind of let you know where I stand with everything and why, if I'm not posting my regular content, which I'm sure so many people are worried about, why that's not happening. Way, way, way bigger things going on in the world, and I'm very aware of it. Educating yourselves is really, really important on what's going on right now, and I've really prioritized educating myself and staying up to date on what's actually going on just to stay informed. It's important. It is really scary, but it is important to know what's going on because it's fucked.
This is effed. The caption of that video, by the way, this was posted 19 hours ago and has almost 20,000 likes, is F ICE. Babies are being murdered by the government, by federal law enforcement, says this influencer. And thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of women who follow her for her cute little outfit of the day videos by the millions believe her. There's 20,000 likes on this video in 19 hours. But you never see these influencers say, it just hurts so bad. And I need to educate myself, and I need to stop posting my silly little videos on the internet about the state-funded and state-sponsored slaughter of millions of children, babies, every year through Planned Parenthood. You never see these people stop their silly little videos on the internet when by the thousands, babies are slaughtered by human traffickers at the southern border. Ever. You never see these people talk about these things. Why is that? Worth asking the question before you respond to the outrage. So we've got nurses, we've got sex podcasters, we've got fashion and lifestyle influencers. How about old people? There are literally old people influencers. Lifestyle old people influencers talking about this, that as a combat veteran, ICE is basically the exact same thing as ISIS. You can't make this stuff up.
Y'all, Dave just said something to me that kind of threw me for a loop. I wasn't expecting that, and I asked if he would repeat it for y'all.
As a combat veteran, I'm having a hard time seeing the difference between ICE and ISIS. ISIS covered their face and publicly executed citizens. ICE is doing the same thing. ICE is operating as a government-sanctioned terrorist organization.
I don't ever really see you get upset. This kind of has me thrown, darling.
It should concern us all.
Through tears, it should concern us all that ISIS wore masks and executed citizens in the street, and that's exactly the same thing that ICE is doing. This account, by the way, has 1.5 million followers on TikTok. And you think this isn't some sort of mechanism to incite more outrage and more violence? What could possibly be the conclusion of comparing federal law enforcement trying to remove violent terrorists from our society to a violent terrorist organization? What is the end result of that? These are normal people behaving this way. Arts and crafts influencers are even participating in this on social media. This is a slime influencer. She makes slime on TikTok. Arts and crafts. You can buy her slime at the link in her bio. Who made a Abolish ICE slime project 13 hours ago on the internet. Watch this. It's hot pink. So aesthetically pleasing. We push the slime. We write on the slime. Abolish ICE. Caption, defund ICE. Call your members of Congress. So we're just doing Abolish ICE ASMR slime videos on the internet now. Oh yeah, we pull it apart. We squish it. We do like what are we doing as a society, honestly? Because the Abolish Slime ICE, defund ICE slime will change society as we know it. And then there's the normies, the people who don't necessarily have massive followings. They're not TikTok influencers. They're not fashion influencers. They're not running a business. They're just normal people who are taking to TikTok saying that they genuinely believe they are going to be the next citizen indiscriminately picked out of the crowd by ICE to be executed in cold blood. So it's time that you and your family get your affairs in order. This is the level to which people are bought into the cycle of manufactured outrage.
I had to have a very hard conversation with my spouse this morning in light of another murder by ICE agents of an American citizen who was exercising his constitutional rights to observe and to legally carry defense on himself. And
neither of which
I was basically like, hey, I think we need to make sure we're on the same page for what we do if and when this comes to our community. He knows that I've been working on some other things, but I was like, I want to make sure that we're on the same page. And he asked me, he's like, if they come here, are you going to be out there? And I said, you know me, You know who you married, and you know I do not stay quiet when people in power abuse their power to harm others. You know that about me. You've seen it. You've seen me do that. And I don't think I could live with myself if I didn't. And he was quiet for a while. And then he just said, I don't want them to shoot you. And I said, I don't really want that either. I've got to do something good with this body I was born into and this one life, you know? So I just think people, make sure you have your affairs in order. I'm going to work on getting mine in order.
Make sure you have your affairs in order. I'm going to work on getting mine in order because I cannot possibly not take to the streets to obstruct law enforcement, to be a good person, to do something meaningful with this body God has given me. And my husband is terrified I'm going to be shot by the cops. And I don't want to get shot by the cops. But that's just the world we live in, and I have to be okay with that because, I don't know, the lieutenant governor of Minnesota is telling me to put my life on the line, put my body on the line. For the record, it is very easy. Just as a general reminder in society, let's remove the emotion from it for a second. It is very easy, 99.999999999% of the time, not to be shot by a member of law enforcement. Don't punch them. Don't run them over with your car. Don't pull a weapon on them. I mean, normal human behavior. But the normies believe this now because their trusted favorite influencers who post fashion videos or who educate them about labor and delivery or who run slime arts and crafts businesses are telling them this is the reality. And they trust those people more than they trust the mainstream media, more than they trust their elected politicians. That's what makes this so dangerous. The worst example of all, by far, is that the evangelical Christian community has become louder than I have ever seen them, certainly louder than I saw them during the Summer of Love for BLM. And there are literally thousands of these videos from prominent Christian influencers, whether they're pastors or podcasters, or in this case, a comedian, saying that Jesus himself would abolish ICE and that Jesus himself would respond in a particular way that you as a good Christian have to respond in kind in order to be a good person. Allie Beth Stuckey has covered this at length on her podcast over the past few days and is doing a phenomenal job on her Instagram stories and on X. So please follow her over there as she tries to break this down on a deeper theological level than we have been. But I thought I would be remiss if I didn't include one of these clips because now the outrage is so much deeper than political activism, which is now ingraining its way into normal human behavior. This is theological. Now, this is a religious fanaticism that unless you go punch a cop in the face because you are called to do so as a good human being, you are a bad Christian and you are not following the teachings of Jesus Christ. Because as you know, Jesus would abolish ICE. This video was posted yesterday and already has 200,000 likes on Instagram.
Hi, I am a gay Christian person, and I just thought it was really important to share something that I wrote today with you. I have never, ever been a Republican, but I have loved God and Jesus my whole entire life. If you are someone who identifies as a Christian but supports ICE or the president, I want you to remember that Jesus was executed for challenging the system. His life and teachings directly threatened the religious, economic, and political power structures of his time, and he was murdered. If you are a follower of Christ, I strongly urge you to follow what the Bible actually says. When a foreigner resides among you in your land, do not mistreat them. The foreigner residing among you must be treated as native born. Love them as yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt. I am the Lord your God. You can argue the context of any scripture, but you can't argue that God doesn't want us to love our neighbors, and our neighbors are being hunted and kidnapped and attacked daily. Our government is killing people, and they are lying to us. The God that I worship is extremely angry about what is going on. I fully believe that. I believe he's extremely angry at our government. They are murdering people in front of us. We cannot stop talking about this. We have to abolish ICE. I truly, truly believe that is exactly what Jesus would do.
I truly believe that is exactly what Jesus would do. Through tears, obviously. And look, I get it. I totally get it. It is so easy to be outraged when the story that you are getting is that the government is just indiscriminately killing people in the streets and executing them in cold blood. As you heard in that video, our government is killing people. Our government is hunting people. And we, the good Christians, are the one challenging the system. But what these people don't even realize is that they are the system. They are participating in the system. They are the useful idiots and political pawns utilized by the system to accomplish more control over you, our society, and your lives, and our faith. It is so easy to believe this stuff when every single trusted journalism outlet and your elected officials and your trusted influencers are repeating the exact same talking points, scripted word for word, over and over and over again. It further cements the narrative even further. And then you feel pressured because everyone around you is swirling with a louder microphone every 5 seconds. You feel pressured into saying something because you genuinely believe it is true. And that in order to be good, you need to participate in that perceived societal truth. And as we segue out of this a little bit today, let me also reiterate, there are certain things happening in our society today that, as a Christian, even though it might be politically my side, I'm uncomfortable with, and I think we need to be honest about. For example, denying priests bringing the Eucharist to ICE detention facilities to celebrate Mass. Ultimately, I have to care more about the salvation of people than the deportation of people. And I fully believe these people who are here illegally in our country need to be deported from our country. But Christianity reigns supreme over my nationality, and people deserve access to the Eucharist and the sacraments as the highest priority of human dignity. But let's just take a second here and remind ourselves that ideological consistency and moral consistency alike are wildly important. If your only performative outrage here is about the need to defund ICE, or whatever the issue of the day has been during every election cycle for the past decade, and you never speak out about other problems of human dignity, then you are part of the problem. You are the system. You are not challenging the system. From an ideological perspective, all of a sudden, people seem to care about the Second Amendment. Like this influencer, TikTok Maddie, who I'm guessing is not wildly supportive of the Second Amendment generally, but now is the resident expert on TikTok about it. With literally, I'm not exaggerating, a video posted 2 days ago, 640,000 likes. Caption, rules for thee, but not for me.
The man that was just shot and executed in broad daylight, they are reporting he had a gun. Guess what? We live in America where you can legally have a gun. It is your God-given right, according to the conservatives, to have a gun. Everyone actually should have a gun in America, because if not, the government's going to go crazy. Remember? Remember when you guys said that? Yesterday and the day before and the day before that and every single day since the birth of the Constitution? He can have a gun. The government doesn't get to shoot you because you have a gun, because it is legally written into our Constitution that you can have a gun.
Because it is legally written into our Constitution that you can have a gun. interesting how now ideologically, all of a sudden, the left cares about the Second Amendment. And similarly, CNN is running stories about social media censorship on a partisan political basis. All of a sudden, the legacy media outlets seem to care about social media censorship and the government censoring certain things, which there's no evidence for, by the way. Allegedly, there's this new conspiracy that all these influencers are trying to post anti-ICE videos to TikTok, and their videos wouldn't post over the weekend. So naturally, CNN runs this headline: TikTok users say they can't upload anti-ICE videos. The company blames tech issues. And they wrote down in their article, TikTok said in a statement that glitches on the app, which I experienced all weekend, and I'm incredibly generally supportive of ICE and federal law enforcement. So it's not really an ideological thing, but whatever. TikTok said in a statement that glitches on the app were due to a power outage at a U.S. data center. As a result, a spokesperson for TikTok told CNN it's taking longer for videos to be uploaded and recommended to other users. The tech issues are ongoing, TikTok said, and are unrelated to last week's news. But that doesn't stop the mainstream media and all of these left-wingers from all of a sudden creating a conspiracy theory that the Trump administration is censoring you on social media. Did we ever once, please, I beg of you, find me an example. Did we ever once see the mainstream media or left-wing influencers call out social media censorship about COVID, about the Hunter Biden laptop story, about the vaccines, about abortion, about any of the politically partisan issues over the last several years as it pertained to conservatives being censored? No. So spare me the ideological inconsistencies here. You guys don't actually care about a lot of these issues that you are posting about. I wish that you did. This is a great opportunity for us to say, hey, maybe you should care about this in the future. But the truth is you don't really care about the politics behind these things that are happening in the mainstream media right now. And worse, you actually don't have the moral consistency in what you claim you are fighting for in reviving actual human dignity. Again, I wish that we did. I wish we could sit down and have an honest conversation about human dignity and maybe where our federal law enforcement could be doing a better job. Like I just said, bringing the Eucharist to Catholics in ICE detention centers. That's something I'm very passionate about, actually, and have not been secretive about. But the truth is, you're not really interested in having that conversation because you don't really care about human dignity, especially as it pertains to immigration. If you are crying about how evil and horrible the ICE officers have been on social media, and you cried about the detention of a 5-year-old, did you cry over the past several years about the hundreds of thousands, 300,000 plus children that went missing under the Biden administration, that we lost track of and likely were trafficked to human trafficking organizations and buyers at the highest bid? Did you cry about that? Did you cry over the 65,000 plus phone calls for help to the helpline set up by the Biden administration that went unanswered, that were exposed at a congressional hearing a few months ago? If you are crying about the idea of children being separated from their families, did you cry when a Texas father lost custody of his son when mom wanted to trans the kid over the past few years? And he lost contact with his own child and now is having to fight the court system to protect the innocence of his son. If you are outraged that someone was killed by a police officer in a situation that could have been preventable, did you cry? Were you outraged when Lake and Riley and other victims of violence from illegal immigrants, which could have been prevented, were assaulted, raped, or killed? Did you cry over Molly Tibbetts on her college campus? Did that spur any sort of emotional reaction to you whatsoever? When you are crying about so-called political persecution and feeling like you have to fight the system, did you cry when Charlie Kirk was murdered in cold blood for trying to have open dialogue and honoring the First Amendment to the Constitution on a college campus? Or for defending the gospel when you claim that you care so much about Christian values and Christianity? The sheer lack of moral consistency here is astounding to me. Because these people claim they care about innocent babies, that children are being killed by the government, but you will never once see them call to defund Planned Parenthood. where our tax dollars are going towards the death and destruction, the mutilation, and having limbs ripped limb from babies' bodies every single day at Planned Parenthood. These people claim to believe all women and cry over believing all women, but they do not bat an eye when women are raped every single day at the southern border. And that I've had many conversations with Tom Homan about this. When we see literal infant babies raped to death by the cartels and violent gang organizations at the southern border. These people claim to care about gun violence, but they don't care that illegal immigration fuels the largest smuggling operation of illegal firearms into our country than anything else in the universe. They don't care. Firearms that will probably go on to fuel gun violence. They claim to care about shootings, but there were 42 shootings in Chicago last weekend. Is there a single social media post out there? Any social media post out there about the 42 shootings that happened last weekend in Chicago? Again, I get it. It is so easy to have your empathy twisted and manipulated and corroded by those with ulterior motives trying to use you as a useful idiot and a political pawn to accomplish their political end goal of more power and more control over your life and manipulating our society. But does it not seem to bother anyone else that this seems to be a unique problem under Donald Trump and during election cycles that we never see with anybody else? I tweeted this the other day, and I think it's important to bring up again, that there is indeed a Charlie Kirk tweet for everything. On July 1st, 2018, Charlie tweeted, "These illegal immigrant protests are much more about hating Trump than actually helping children." God, I wish Charlie was here to help guide us through some of this week. But he's right. He was right in 2018, and he's right again, because it is the same cycle of manufactured outrage over and over and over again. If you look at the actual numbers of weekly deportations, by the way, my producer Dean pulled this for you guys because I could not even begin to wrap my head around this until I looked at a chart of it. When you look at the weekly deportation flights operated by ICE under the Biden administration and now under Donald Trump, it's relatively pretty steady. There's a slight uptick under Trump now in the latter half of the year, the last 6 months of the year. Look at the comparison of the weekly deportation flights and then the levels of coordinated unrest, the immigration-related demonstrations by week, and tell me this isn't about Donald Trump. Tell me this isn't funded by left-wing billionaires trying to accomplish a political means to an end. Tell me they are not relying on the fact that you will be a useful idiot in order to spur some societal change here. See, we also seem to totally forget that the Obama administration prioritized what we would now call in the mainstream media mass deportations to the tune of literally awarding Tom Homan, who is our current border czar, the evil guy being sent to Minneapolis this week, a presidential medal for his actions. Let's not forget that in 2014, 12 years ago, I did my waiting, 12 years of it in Azkaban. 12 years ago, the ACLU wrote an article about how the Obama administration was deporting people without due process. They said in 2014, the Obama administration has prioritized speed over fairness in the removal system, sacrificing individualized due process in the pursuit of record removal numbers. And you didn't see these demonstrations happening in the street or people crying on the internet with their performative outrage. In 2016, Politico ran the headline, "Obama administration kicks off family deportation raids." And you never saw people crying on the internet or elected officials telling you to go put your body on the line in front of an ICE officer over family separation then, 10 years ago in 2016. Instead, in 2015, you saw Obama literally award Tom Homan, I have a picture of this for you, the Presidential Medal of Distinguished Service for his work at ICE. This picture is everywhere right now, and it should be, because this guy is now called evil, a Nazi, the leader of the Gestapo. Tell me this has nothing to do with Donald Trump and election cycles and making you a useful idiot. What's really obvious and scary to me, though, and where I want to end our episode today, is the fact that this repeat manufactured outrage cycle is actually leading to real radicalization of people to normalize legitimate, tangible violence. The irony is the people who are crying on the internet this week about an end to violence, about defunding and abolishing ICE so that we can restore human dignity and end violence, are spreading such dangerous misinformation and propaganda that they are actually radicalizing people into real acts of violence against the innocent. Charlie Kirk style acts of violence in taking people's lives and ruining their existences, their reputations, and causing as much physical harm as humanly possible. These two things may seem unrelated as you've seen them on the internet, but they are exactly the same root problem, that we are normalizing propaganda to radicalize people into violence. You may have seen some of these clips of healthcare workers. Alex Preddy was also a healthcare worker, going viral over the past several days, of people saying that as a nurse or as an anesthesiologist or as an OBGYN, I would cause pain on my patients if I knew they were an ICE officer or they were a member of the Trump administration or they happened to just remotely be MAGA. And this is a national trend, not isolated to Minneapolis, but all over the country where these people are being exposed in the last few days because they have been radicalized into normalizing violence as healthcare workers, as doctors who took the Hippocratic oath to do no harm because they believe they are a good guy. They believe they are a martyr. They believe they are furthering the cause of social justice if they cause and inflict harm upon people that they disagree with. Here's a health worker at Virginia Commonwealth University, funny enough, the place that I was first attacked by Antifa, where I lost my Antifa virginity, ridiculously insane college campus here in the DC area, a couple hours from DC. A VCU health worker says, Melinda, that she would encourage other healthcare workers to inject ICE agents with a temporary paralysis drug and spray poison on them with the intent on inflicting as much damage as possible. Listen to this.
I thought of something good. I think it's something weird spot. Sabotage tactic, or at least scare tactic. All the medical providers, grab some syringes with needles on the end. Have them full of saline or succinylcholine, whatever. That will probably be a deterrent. Be safe.
That will probably be a deterrent to these people. Scare tactic, sabotage tactic. Fill your syringes with needles on the end, healthcare practitioners, with succinylcholine, which is a temporary paralysis drug, and inject ICE agents with it. Eric, a registered nurse in Florida, says that he would refuse to give anesthesia to any Republican undergoing surgery. This is at the University of Miami Health System, where I was a patient when I was pregnant with my daughter when we lived in Miami before we moved here to DC. And he believes this is his right. This is his inerrant right and is an ethical thing to do as a nurse. He put on Facebook, I will not perform anesthesia for any surgeries or procedures for MAGA. This is in Florida. It is my right, it is my ethical oath, and I stand behind my education. I own all of my businesses, and I can refuse anyone. Or how about a labor and delivery nurse in Boca Raton named Lexi Lawler, who is going incredibly viral this week, wearing her Rainbow Trump Sucks t-shirt, saying that as a labor and delivery nurse, she wishes for Caroline Levitt, who is currently pregnant with her second child, I hope you effing rip from bow to stern, meaning a 4th degree tear in childbirth, and that you never normally again, you C-word. Listen to this.
As a labor and delivery nurse, it gives me great joy to wish Caroline Levitt a 4th degree tear. I hope that you rip from bow to stern and never normally again, you.
A labor and delivery nurse. When women are in the most vulnerable position they will ever be in their entire lives. When you feel like literally everything is out of your control and you are entirely reliant upon the nurses that are taking care of you. Luckily, we had amazing L&D nurses and OBGYNs alike in my delivery experience. But what's really scary is this isn't even like a hypothetical. My friend Jillian Anderson, diehard MAGA, apparently had this nurse. Lexi Lawler was her labor and delivery nurse, and she tweeted this: "I had this nurse. On top of the traumatic birthing experience she gave me, after I delivered, she made a bunch of racist comments about how some people of a certain kind need to be having abortions. I actually had hired a doula for my third pregnancy to entirely avoid nurses at the hospital after that experience. 2 years later, she's attacking my friend and her new pregnancy. Good riddance, lady." She's now been disbarred from her medical license, if I recall correctly, or they're working on that in Florida. She's certainly been fired from her job. So this isn't even a hypothetical. This is like actually how these people, medical professionals, are treating anyone who is remotely conservative in vulnerable medical situations in the hospital. When we buy into the manufactured outrage cycle perpetrated by the mainstream media, by our elected officials, and by normie influencers, we normalize propaganda that is encouraging the manifestation of legitimate physical violence. Do not allow yourself to participate blindly in the cycle over and over and over and over again, like, frankly, way too many of you guys have. The last thing I'll say is this. We'll find out more about what's really going on in Minneapolis in the next few days. There's a deep investigation going on. I don't know if the shooting of Alex Preddy was justified. I have no idea. I'm going to leave it to the investigation to tell us. I can tell you the footage made me really uncomfortable, and I understand why people are so upset over this. And you should be upset about the loss of life, period, because all of us do have human dignity, and we all were created in the image of God. But when it pertains to the larger 30,000-foot view of the manufactured outrage cycle, I want to remind you that omniscience is reserved for God alone. I've seen way too many times the immediate need, and I find it in myself. I'm actually having to hold myself back more often than not. The immediate need to jump in and post something about exactly your foregone conclusion and what is right and what is wrong 0.2 seconds after every single tragedy, crisis, war, etc. in the last few years, that is harming our psychological ability to discern reality with every passing day. We as human beings were not created intentionally by God, equipped to handle knowing everything about everyone 100% of the time. We just weren't. We were not created with the capacity to have a deep emotional investment in every single crisis, every death, every war. And when we try to have a deep emotional investment in every single thing, we break. We snap psychologically and emotionally. It's not hard to understand why. It's because we are not supposed to be omnipresent everywhere all at once. Only God is. We cannot physically be everywhere all at once, but these things and the internet are causing us to think that we are. Similarly, we aren't meant to be omniscient either. We aren't supposed to know everything all at once, all the time. Only God is. But these things, again, are causing us, and social media and the internet at large are causing us, deceiving us, to think that we are supposed to know everything that's going on the entire face of the planet every 5 seconds of every single day. It's breaking us. It's snapping our humanity. Maybe our parents were right and it really is the damn phones. I don't know. But it is so clear to me that we as a generation have to make a dramatic change in how humanity perceives the world and, in particular cases, perceives a crisis if we are to survive as a society beyond the next 5 minutes. So as this information is being thrown, spewed, propagandized in front of you all the time, the answer to how we are supposed to respond as Christians and as functional adults is to take a breath. Before you feel the need to post, did you feel the need to pray? I say this all the time. Prayer is often treated in our instant gratification society as the last line of defense, when in reality, it should be the first line of offense. if we want to restore a common shared human dignity in society for everyone from the unborn to illegal immigrants and everything in between, it starts with our common nexus being created in the image of God. It starts with God. So are we running to God at the same speed that we are running to post, running to Instagram, to TikTok, to X? Gut check, I sure as hell am not. I'm caught up in the manufactured outrage cycle just as often as everybody else. But we as a generation, in the midst of our spiritual revival, as the generation for the first time in modern history that's going to church more often than our grandparents, we have a chance to change the future. We don't have to keep repeating the same rinse and repeat cycle every election term of BLM and the Women's March and abortion and George Floyd and the Summer of Love protests and the vaccines and COVID and Gaza and support Hamas and now abolish ICE, where 6 months later we look back and go, I probably shouldn't have posted that. Probably shouldn't have said that. Maybe I should have waited for more stuff to come out. This week, I hope that we all have the moral clarity to say my immediate emotional reaction is probably spurred on by propaganda more than it is reality. Do I feel the need to run to my knees and pray just as much as I feel the need to run to my phone and post? And when we can start answering that question, that's when we finally can restore some human dignity in the process. We have some really exciting stuff going on for the rest of the week. To wrap up today's episode, I am headed to the Treasury Department tomorrow to join the Trump administration for the launch of their Trump accounts for babies born during these couple of years, which is very, very exciting. And I can't wait to show you guys a little bit of the behind the scenes of what that all looks like. I'm told there's a very exciting guest lineup for all of that at the Treasury Department tomorrow. We are attending a movie premiere this week, which I'm super excited to talk more about toward the latter half of the week, and so much more. But just know that I am praying for every single one of you, and I would humbly like to request that you guys continue to pray for me as we put out a show every single day, because it's dawning on me that we often probably participate in the manufactured outrage cycle too. And my biggest responsibility in the entire world is not just to change your mind on who should be the president or what your opinion on legislation should be or what's going on in current events and the news. The only thing that I could ever hope to accomplish with the platform that God has given me is to bring wisdom from the Holy Spirit to our generation and to try to bring as many people to heaven as humanly possible. I'm tired of reacting to everything all the time, and I know you guys are too. So let's stop blindly reacting and instead start building something more beautiful together.